Thank you, Senator. Senator Niall O'Donnell.
Gurmaigh las Carly was going buhas leis an Ira sa bhéilin inniu Gary gnam táhachtach agus critical seo fáinne níomhain na sé condé ag an Ellen in Omlin. Minister, thank you for joining us today. I think what we all acknowledge is a critical time, not just for the North, but given the triggering of Article 50, the island in its entirety. I want to, if I can, Minister, actually just deal with two elements of your statement. Obviously, the current conclusion of negotiations in the North, and also the issue of Brexit. And actually, Minister, I'm heartened. I take great heart from the clarity of your words and your statement here today. I have been following your public utterances and indeed colleagues in the government, and I read your platform piece in the Irish News just yesterday or the day before, I can't quite remember. So I think in light of all of that, Minister, and given the severity of the issues we're dealing with in the North, I think what we need to do now is go beyond words and start to find ourselves in a place of action, because colleagues are right. We do need to deal with the outstanding issues. Some of them have been identified. For example, an Irish Language Act. An Irish Language Act was signed up to, agreed and committed to at St Andrews over 10 years ago. A Bill of Rights is just one example, which was signed up to, agreed and at the Good Friday Agreement almost 20 years ago. That agreement and all aspects of it were overwhelmingly endorsed by the democratic mandate of people in this state and indeed in the North as well. So there's a huge onus on us to see the implementation of the agreements in their fullest. And obviously I don't need to tell the Minister that one of the main points of contention over recent times has been the issue of legacy. And I would go so far as to put it to the Minister that I think, as opposed to hearing about James Brokenshire and his role as some kind of mediator or arbitrator, we need to actually identify the British government as players in these negotiations. I'm sure the Minister will agree with all of us around the need for an Irish Language Act, around the need to respect each other's cultural traditions and identities. But what we also need to do is acknowledge and shine a light on, I think, the very negative role that the British government are actively playing in these negotiations to hinder and prohibit the progress around the agreements at Stormont House and Fresh Start. Again, the legacy elements were agreed there. So you have the British government actively hindering progress on those issues, not least the unwillingness of the Secretary of State to release the funds for legacy inquests. So again, we need to start hearing more about action in terms of what the Irish government, as co-guarantors of those agreements, what actions they are going to take, as opposed to the words. So I would ask you, Minister, in terms of that element of my contribution, is it your position that the Irish government wants to see the implementation of an Irish Language Act? What are you doing as co-guarantors to make that come about? Is it your position, and I read with interest your recent contribution to the Pat Flanagan Memorial Lecture in Belfast, which I actually think was a very positive and worthwhile intervention on your behalf. So do you agree that the British government are not acting impartially in these negotiations, that the onus is on them to move proactively in terms of bringing a conclusion to the outstanding issues of legacy and to release the much-needed funding for legacy inquests, which the Lord Chief Justice is asking them and has been very clear on public record he wants them to do? In relation to Brexit, Minister, you said here in your contribution that nothing can be allowed to undermine the peace process, which, founded on the Good Friday Agreement, has brought us definitively beyond the horror of the Troubles. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, but obviously a lot of people would put forward the argument that it's too late, that Brexit has done exactly that. And it's not just me who thinks that, or indeed people on this island. I was on my phone earlier actually pulling up the European Parliament's Constitutional Affairs Committee report into Brexit, and on page 41 of that report they say the impact of Brexit will be both political, in particular since the Good Friday Agreement, an international agreement, will require alteration. So what you're calling for not to happen, it's contested by the European Parliament, is already happening. So my question in terms of other issues applies to that. What are the Irish Government going to do? One of the suggestions I would offer has already been articulated by Senator Daly. One which, in fact, Minister, as you know, you are mandated to seek by the Dáil, who in February passed a motion compelling the government to make the case for special designated status for the North. So I appreciate we are tight for time, Minister. There's a number of questions there I have put to you. I could probably put about 100 more, but I hope, and to be fair, you have been engaging with this House regularly. I hope and look forward to you coming back into us again.
Thank you very much, Senator.